Hi everybody, welcome once again to Out of the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. I'm Robert Taylor coming to you on WNTV.
And I'm Pamela Hill Taylor, and as you know, we bring you guests who uplift, enlighten, inspire, educate, and entertain.
And our guest today has been on many times because he's a multiple author. I think he's working on his 30th book. And he's a great Vedic scholar. All of his literature are about the Vedic knowledge and spirituality. And it gives us great pleasure to welcome back Stephen Knapp to the show.
Thank you very much,
Stephen.
Bob. Pamela?
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. So this book actually that we have today is maybe 2 or 3 down the line.
Yeah, about 3 years ago I came out with this book.
And spectacular information, advancements of ancient India's Vedic culture. And of course you've just come back from India.
Right,
Yeah.
just got back from India, spent about 5 weeks there, and doing a little tour between Calcutta and Delhi. And so I was able to visit a few places I haven't been to before, which includes Vishnupur, a place called Vishnupur. I was in Mayapur, came up to Vishnupur. Vishnupur is a center for like the ancient temples from about 400 to 500 years ago. A lot of the Vaishnava or Krishna temples that they made mostly out of brick and stucco. And there's several hundred of these temples, but this is like a center of it, and they have about 20 temples there, which I was able to see and take photographs of. Then I went up to Gaya, which is also a very holy place.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that connected to the Buddhists?
no, Bodh Gaya is connected to which I was there too.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's only 12 kilometers away.
Wow.
So when you go to Gaya, I went down to Bodh Gaya, and you know the thing about it is, it's just they're so much bigger than they used to be. Because I've been to these places before, but I haven't been to, which is also a town nearby, Rajgir and Nalanda. Rajgir is a place where Buddha did some of his original teaching, and the first Buddhist council was in Rajgir.
Yeah.
I mean, this is hundreds of years ago. But then Nalanda also was known for being one of the biggest universities of ancient India. Fact is, it was known to have had about 10,000 students at one time, and even 1,500 teachers,
Amazing.
or what you'd call professors these days.
Yeah.
And
When does that date back to?
that dates back over 1,000 years ago.
Amazing.
And
So at one time it was a real educational mecca.
oh yeah, very much so. I mean, there was others. Takshashila, Kashi was another one. Navadvip was another one. But Nalanda was in kind of a class of its own. And they had students from all over the world, practically, as far as Asia goes, and Europe, that came in to Nalanda and study there. And there were so many different topics. And unfortunately, when the invaders came in, the Islamic invaders torched the place, cut off the heads of the professors, the teachers, and set the library on fire. And it was said to have had hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of books and manuscripts. And it was said that once they torched it, it took like 6 months to burn. It was burning for 6 months for that length of time. So all that information was lost and stuff. But you can still see what's left of it. So I went there to Nalanda to, take some pictures, because this is one of the, you could say, ancient advancements of Indian culture and India itself from many years ago. And they used to teach a lot of the ancient sciences, whether it was Ayurveda, surgery, mathematics, Jyotish, which is astrology and astronomy, and all yoga, all these different things they used to teach there at Nalanda. So a lot of the ancient sciences that came out of India were also taught there, and then once the students learned these ancient sciences, and a lot of them would go in different directions and actually help spread the knowledge that was there.
The West gets very excited about the Greek culture, but they don't know that a lot of the Greek philosophy and culture was influenced by the Vedic tradition.
Right, yeah, a lot of them, Plato and others, were all influenced by the Vedic philosophy. And it comes through, especially his discourses on the soul, karma, reincarnation, all these things were based and rooted in the knowledge of the Vedas. And fact is, even mathematics, the Greek, Roman, and Egyptian, and even the Chinese forms of mathematics had all reached a crescent in the sense that it came to as much development as it could make at the time. But only later, by adopting the numerical system that came out of India, which was known as the Arabic system, were they able to continue their advancements. But that's interesting because even the Arabs knew that these numbers that they were using were from India. In fact, they called them, in Arab, they called them Al-Arkan al-Hindu, which was, the Indian mathematical system, or Hindisat, which means the Indian art. So they knew that all these numbers and the number, 1 through 9, and even the 0, which is called probably the best invention of mathematics ever, all came from India. And then, of course, the whole system of transferring the remainder of one column into another also came from India. Wow. So all these mathematical advancements were able to continue once they adopted the Indian system.
Now we're talking about a culture that really kind of started to deteriorate 5,000 years ago. We don't even have any history really of prior to 5,000 years in terms of ancient cultures. But this, from what we can learn from your books, there was such an advanced culture existing. Tell us about the Vedic culture.
Well, along with the Vedic culture came the Sanskrit, which is considered still to this day to be probably one of the most sophisticated languages that's ever been invented, even though some people feel it came from, a divine source. But there's also the things like textiles, metallurgy, of course, surgery, the medical system, all these different things also were highly developed and during the ancient days of India compared to the surrounding countries. In fact, there was one story where an Arabic ambassador came back from India and gave the Sultan a coconut. And everybody's thinking, well, what's so great about a coconut? I mean, what? But then they opened the coconut, and 30 yards of fine sheer cloth came out of it.
Wow!
So this is how, and of course, textiles was always on the order from Greek traders and stuff from India. In fact, our word cotton comes from the Sanskrit word kantan, which means to make a thread from a ball of cotton. So and it's known that
I was thinking that was silk maybe coming out of there, but it was a very fine cotton perhaps coming out of that coconut.
They were using cotton in India 5,000 years ago, and Greece and the Middle Eastern countries never even heard of cotton until Alexander invaded India. That was the first time they'd ever seen it, and then of course they brought it back, and then from there on the traders always wanted cotton textiles and silks as well.
And we think we're so sophisticated, so knowledgeable, and all that was going on 5,000 years and more ago.
And steel and metallurgy. Steel was another thing that India was very much known for. In fact, you had the what was called the Damascus steel. Damascus steel, because the steel that came out of India was very strong but very light, very useful for swords. So all the military from the surrounding area wanted this kind of steel to use for their swords at the time. So this was another thing. Of course, there's other means where they put together the iron in a particular way. They were known to work with iron. They were also known to work with gold and silver at the time, which was, again, far more advanced than the surrounding areas that had never seen this kind of work done before. Not only for jewelry, but also for coins and things like that. But a lot of that advancement came out of India at the time. So you had the metallurgy, you had textiles, you had surgery. A lot of the surgical instruments we have today were originally developed out of, say, bone, thread, and things like that in ancient India. And they haven't really changed that much, actually.
There was that famous physician, Shushruta.
Shushruta was he developed his Shushruta Samhita on surgery. Then there was Charaka, who developed his Samhita, his books on medicine and things like that. So all these, and then of course you had all these ancient mathematicians. So you had all these people that were highly skilled, highly advanced, and from which a lot of the knowledge that we got on developing ourselves as a civilization came from India as opposed to Greek.
Yeah,
And in fact, some people feel that Greece is nothing more than a perverted form of Sanskrit, because Sanskrit was way ahead of the Greek language. The Greek language is known not to have been developed for another 1,000 years after Sanskrit had already been on
In
the planet.
existence, yeah.
Even, you know, I mean, it is considered to be the source of all Indo-European languages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I watched a great documentary on India. I forget the name of his name. He's a great presenter. But he was comparing, for instance, the average Indian city to what it would have been like in the UK. You know, time of Henry VIII or something. And you know, Westerners were just absolutely stunned by the organization of the city and the beauty that was created by the Maharajas, you know, in the cities themselves.
Yeah, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, there's a few other places that are known for being ancient cities, but with well-advanced housing, street layout, sewage system, all these different things that were there only to appear even later in the European cities. So again, they were way ahead of their time, comparatively speaking.
Could live a pretty comfortable, it sounds like a pretty comfortable and safe enough life back
Yeah,
then with
it was.
all of those.
And socially,
Yeah, it was
nicely
much more
structured.
Yeah, a nice social structure as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, people will be absolutely stunned to hear scriptures thousands of years ago, the Vedic scriptures. There's a whole section on building airplanes.
Yeah. And in fact, in the Puranas, the Mahabharata, they have descriptions of what was called Vimanas, and you know. So the thing of it is, whether they were in existence or not, the point of it is they had already reached their mental understanding of what airplanes would be like.
So it was in their consciousness.
It was in their consciousness. It was in their awareness. They knew that these things had obviously existed.
And they're also talking about millions of material universes in the creation of God, thousands
Yeah,
of
that's another thing. Ours was not the only universe. But they accepted the idea that there's millions of universes out there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's all, you know, very foreign at the time to be thinking like that, which was common knowledge and common thought processes for the ancient Indians, the Vedic system especially. So, and this was all spread, you know, simply by the attraction of the philosophy itself. It wasn't spread by colonization, fear, force, you know, or conquering or anything like that. It all spread simply by the natural attraction that this culture could have and supplied for the benefit of others.
You know, even the name of the scriptures, Veda, it means just knowledge. So they are literally non-sectarian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like universal spiritual principles that can be applied at any time, in any place in the universe, by anybody. And that's what makes it attractive. And that's why people still are being so attracted to things like yoga and investigating, say, like the Bhagavad Gita, and finding out about karma, reincarnation, you know, who or what is God, what am I as a spirit soul, what is the science of the soul, all these different things are laid out in the Bhagavad Gita and then further elaborated in the other literature like the Puranas and Vedanta Sutras, Upanishads, all these different books.
Volumes
that are,
and volumes. Yeah.
So it's not like we have just one book to study, but actually it's a whole library. And it's meant to take you from one level of consciousness to another until you can finally understand exactly and clearly who and what you are, how you got here, where you're supposed to go, and how to get there, spiritually speaking.
How you fit into the whole.
And how we fit in, how we work with nature instead of trying to dominate it, how we can work in harmony with nature and work in harmony with each other.
Long time, and people still haven't learned that. The
seems like it,
culture
yeah.
is so all over, haven't learned that.
That's why I think people are going back to the indigenous cultures. I mean, those people that are trying to find out where they fit in they're going back to the indigenous cultures, whether it's the American Indian culture or the ancient East Indian culture or whatever. They're going back because that is where you have the most holistic knowledge of understanding who and what we are and how we fit into this world.
Well, there's a harmony with nature. They're not fighting
Right.
it and, as you said, trying to conquer it, but they're living in harmony with it.
Exactly.
And what we see when we study these histories in the Vedic literatures is that people were living very opulent lifestyles, but in harmony with their environment.
Yeah. They have everything they need, and everything is being manifest in a very natural way. You learn how to say the botany was also part of ancient India's Vedic culture. They learned how to grow so many different crops that were only later understood and cultivated in Europe and other places. And they learned how to collect water, because parts of India are very dry. They learned how to collect and how to utilize water, how to conserve water like that. And so this was common knowledge at the time, where irrigation was also part of it. So,
And I think the harmonious existence with nature was because there was such a advanced spiritual teaching.
right.
Yeah, people learned that actually wherever there's life, there is a soul. So they had some respect for the plants, for the animals, for the trees, the fishes, etc., because they realized they're also part and parcel of God's energy.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that was part of the essential teaching, is that, you know, behind every personality is the soul. And that is interspecies, you know, it's not just humans, but I mean, it's also interspecies. So you work with the animals in that kind of respect, as opposed to simply trying to control or dominate. And so they developed a very gentle, you might say, gentle village life. It was a simple life. They didn't have to, you know, create big cities and industries, things like that. It was all based on the village life, where people would learn by the village teacher, and they would cultivate the plants and the farming, and with a few cows or something, and live in a very simple way, which is very peaceful. So it was that was the most important thing. The common knowledge, the common language, basically, was love. It was a loving cooperation, as opposed to simply trying to do business and get whatever else you can from the next guy, you know, or the next customer, or the next business person, or whatever.
As we're seeing today.
Too much we're seeing
Times
today.
1,000, a million,
So, and that's, again, one of the reasons why I think people are looking back on the indigenous cultures and what they had to offer, as opposed to what we have now. Because people are getting tired of, you know, the rat race, as they call it.
Yeah, so much stress.
How do we get out of that?
They drop out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the American Medical Association said that the biggest disease in the 21st century will be stress.
Yeah, well, you can see that right now.
Yeah, it's happening, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
happening.
all of this technology is not really making our lives any easier. I'm not seeing
Added
it.
a lot of stress.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
I mean, I just went to the store yesterday, and I'm going into the parking lot, and I see this woman just focused on her smartphone, and I'm thinking she is going to look up to check, you know the old saying, stop, look, and listen before you cross the street.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't appears that nobody even understands that anymore, because she didn't look at all, and so I stopped, you know,
Yeah.
and then finally she looks up, and well, you know, I mean, if I hadn't have stopped, I would have ran you over or something. But, you know, they're so focused on something that's actually what I consider, maybe some people don't, so trivial.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't wait for 5 minutes to cross the street safely to make sure that nothing happens.
It's a
without
society
looking
of
at the phone.
it's a society of distraction.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
And nobody's living in the now.
yeah.
They're in the future, all the time in the future.
Yeah. Got to get to this.
Got to get this, not even, barely at the place of destination when they're already thinking of the next destination. So nobody's ever really in the moment.
I reflect on, you know, my time as a kid, right? You go into the little local store, and the guy has his little register, and you give him your money, and he puts in the amount and then he gives you the change. It wasn't even electric at the time, you know. And, you know, your milk came in bottles, and there was no problem with recycling, because all the materials were all natural, recyclable. Gosh, now there's, they say in the Pacific there's a mountain of plastic from the plastic bottles from the water.
Yeah, that's all accumulating, and they don't know what to do with it. It is out of control. That's why when I go to India, basically, I like to go back to the simple life. And I mean, it's not all simple in India. I'll be honest about that. But the thing of it is that I can go back there and not be distracted by the usual Western amenities that are always such a part of our lives today that, like you say, are sometimes more of distractions than they are, you know, a help or assistance to us. And
well, I even in my 60-odd years on the planet, I think it's a proof of that Darwin's philosophy is definitely off, because we've devolved. We're looking at a devolved civilization.
Where's the evolving happening these days?
Gotten more frenetic, more stressful, more frantic, less peaceful.
So what you're presenting here is also a philosophical concept, that there is a much nicer way to live.
Yeah, it's all in this book. It's not only the advancements, the ancient advancements that came out of ancient India and stuff, but also the philosophy which made their life what it was at the time. I mean, I have to admit, India is becoming more westernized all the time. It's not quite what it used to be in this sense.
Too many people also.
A lot of people, a lot of, you know, a lot of Western gadgets and all this stuff that's taking over. But at the same time, it did have a philosophy which many people are trying to get back to, in a sense. They're investigating things like yoga, reincarnation, ahimsa, nonviolence, you know, or holistic medicine through Ayurveda or Jyotish. All these things are starting to become more and more popular these days, especially in the West, because people begin to understand that if I want to reach my full potential in this life, then this is actually tools. These are tools that I can use to do that. So because everybody wants to reach a higher potential. Everybody wants to the reason why I'm here. Where am I going? How did I get here? And now that I'm here, what am I going to do with this life? What's the best thing to do? So this was definitely a part of the philosophy, part of the lifestyle of ancient India.
And of course, the ultimate goal of that whole culture was to become totally God-realized.
God-realized, and once again becoming qualified in one's consciousness enough where you could reach basically what's called moksha, or liberation, and never have to come back into this material realm and in this kind of material body again. The body is a great tool. It's a great machine. We're still trying to understand it, but it is that. It is a machine. It's not our real identity. We're inside looking out from the position of the soul. The soul is what our real identity is. And this was the essence, or the basis. Understanding this was the basis of this particular civilization. And other civilizations too, for that matter. It wasn't just the Indian or Vedic culture, but the Vedic culture evolved around that concept.
So where can people find advancements of ancient India's Vedic culture?
Well, they can find that book on Amazon.com and all the Amazon outlets, both as paperback or Kindle.
Or they can find it in Delhi Airport. Yeah, because amazingly, here you are, a Westerner, written over 30 books on Vedic culture, and now you're being studied by many, many Indian people.
Yeah, that's true. That's my main audience, oddly enough.
Now, and you get to go over there, you're asked to go over to India to speak on Vedic culture.
Yeah, I've done a number of lecture tours. In fact, that's where the real reason why I went this time, you know, because normally I wouldn't go this time of year because it's getting a little hot.
Oh, very, very hot.
They paid for my ticket. Who am I to say no?
Yeah.
So then I go over, I do some speaking engagements, but then I also see and do research from some of the places that I just mentioned.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's the advantage of it.
And some of your other titles, what do you think? I think your reincarnation book would be a great one for people to get a hold of.
Reincarnation, there's also an introduction to Hinduism and Vedic culture called The Power of the Dharma. There's another one called The Secret Teachings of the Vedas. And all of those will come up on the Amazon. If you just do a search for Stephen Knapp on Amazon, all those books will come up. Because I've gotten, over 25, well, actually there's almost 30 books that are on Amazon that cover different aspects, like the Vedic prophecies is another one. So things like that, anybody can find, and obviously if they're interested in any different aspects of Vedic culture, there's a book that can accommodate that.
Now we know you're working on another book.
Another book right now, it's called The Mysteries of the Ancient Vedic Culture, The Mysteries of the Ancient Vedic Empire, and recognizing Vedic culture around the world. Because if we understand the Vedic culture properly, we can recognize how it has influenced so many countries around the world. And so I'm putting all that information together now, doing a final proofread and editing of the book as we speak, basically. And hopefully I'll have that done in another couple months. Done as being another book on Amazon.com, and which will show places like Cambodia, Angkor Wat, even the Americas, the ancient Americas, Southeastern Asia, how they were all influenced, and how they still have remnants of the Vedic tradition that you can recognize today. That's still there. So
even the fact that Buddha was from India.
Yeah. So all
millions and billions.
Yeah, so all this information will be in that book, which is basically a follow-up of a previous book called Proof of Vedic Culture's Global Existence. Yeah. That book is also on Amazon, and people like that topic.
And you can get it electric. Right?
That's right.
Very fascinating. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks so much.
We'd like to thank Mr. Stephen Knapp for joining us on the show. We'd also like to thank all of you for joining us on Out of the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. Don't forget,
God is alive and magic is afoot.